Hi everybody, it's Yvette the Techie Scrapper. Welcome back to Techie Scrapper Story and Scrap. It's definitely been a while since I've done a book review or posted any reviews. I am going to put out my book haul here, I think today or tomorrow for September. Bought a couple of books this month. But anyway, like I said, it's been a while. I think I mentioned probably in my previous video too that last time I actually read was June, and I finally listened to a book this month, and we're in September, so it's kind of crazy. I kind of like started thinking like, man, it's been a while, and am I gonna meet my book goal for this year? And then I was like, yeah, it's not. The goal is a goal. If you reach it, you reach it. If you don't, you don't. And to be honest, I have never reached my book reading goal since I started back out really reading in 2022, I think. If you guys see me do this, actually, my little puppy, he's crazy. Don't pay any attention to him. Anyway, so life be life, as I like to say. And so the last time I actually read anything was back in June. And now we're in September. And so I looked at my goal. I had set a goal of 52 books this year. I think the year before, I think last year was 60. Before that was 80. Yeah. So I thought, okay, let me do 52, a book a week for 52 weeks out of the year. Well, to be honest, I got up to 40 books by June. So like I said, life be lifing, but I also got a little, what's the word I'm looking for? I hit a rut. There we go. I hit a rut. Because some of the books I read, I either had finished a series or they were long, really long books. And anyway, to me, 40 books by June, when I started reading, I think it was either the 6th or 7th of January is when I started for this year for reading. Was a lot of books for me. And so I took a little bit of a break, and I ended up picking up a new book because I said, let me get back into it. I know with school, and school is a lot, and so I doing a lot of reading for school. So I haven't wanted to read for some reason. And reading for me is a hobby. It's a way for me to decompress, to step out of what life be lifing kind of thing going on. And so I do it for enjoyment. So when I'm not getting enjoyment out of it, I kind of take a break from it. But I never want to take so long of a break to where I'm not doing it anymore. I do love to read. I love to listen to books on audio and things like that. So, so I picked a book up, and this year, besides meeting the 52 books for the year as a aspirational goal, I also wanted to read a classic, and I wanted to read a book off of the banned book list, and which was 2. I want to try to read at least one nonfiction, and I also want to read a new author. So there's kind of things that I've set that I wanted to meet, that I wanted to try to get to this year. And honestly, if I don't get to it this year, then I'll move it to next year's goals. It's okay. There's no rush. There's no worry. There's no stress. It's reading. Reading is supposed to be stress-free. So I forgot when I read it. I would have to go back and look at Goodreads. But one of the books I read was The Bluest Eye. By Toni Morrison, and you guys can go back and look at my blog review of that, which is on the ban list. Ban list. And I also have Maya Angelou on my list for this year as well, because all of her poems, if I'm not mistaken, are on the book ban list. Anyway, so one of the things I told myself that I wanted to do when I picked up one of the books was I wanted to first read it before I look to see why it's banned. So one of the books that I read this month after coming off of my hiatus, that's a good word, hiatus, is The Alchemist. Not a long read. I listened to it on Libby. I checked it out through Libby, so I don't own the book. So what I'll try to do later in editing is try to add a picture here or here, somewhere up in here in this blank space above me, of the book. But I read The Alchemist, very short. I think it was probably 4 hours for listening time, but I want to say it's only maybe 100 something pages. I think it's under 200 pages. Don't quote me on it, but I think it's under 200 pages that the book is. And what I'm doing right now is I'm looking at my iPad because I took some notes. So The Alchemist was written by Paulo Coehlo. I know I'm saying this wrong because I think he's a Portuguese author. And to be honest, that was another thing on my list for goals, was to read a book from an author who's not from the US or American author. I wanted to try to venture out and try to read other authors outside of my normal genres. I'm trying to, I'm thinking in order to not get into a reading rut, because I do have a specific taste of books that I read, that it sometimes, because some of them are long or some of them are world building, some of them some other stuff too, a little spice too, but I get into a rut. So I want to try to move out of that. So one of my aspirational goals this year was to read an author from another country. I think one of the goals was to read a book that had been translated. So I did not know that The Alchemist was actually originally released or published in Portuguese. So that I kind of get 2 checks on that on my little bingo board. But yes, it was initially released in Portuguese, and the author, Paulo, and I know I hate messing up people's last names. I hate when they mess up mine, but it's Coehlo. Coehlo. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to jack it up. But anyway, it's The Alchemist. And The Alchemist is on the banned list, the book ban list. But just to give you a little bit of a synopsis of the book, it says The Alchemist is the story of Santiago, a young shepherd who travels from Spain to the Egyptian pyramids to fulfill his recurring dream of finding treasure. We all want to find treasure. A journey that teaches him to follow his personal legend. Along the way, he encounters various mentors, faces hardships, finds love, and learns that the true treasure is the wisdom and self-discovery gained from pursuing one's destiny, with the universe ultimately conspiring to help those who follow their heart. So I want to take a pause here. When I listened to this book, again, the book was 4 hours. It's not a long book. Initially, as I'm listening to this book, I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure why the book is banned. I mean, really what the overall essence of the story is that Santiago had a dream. He, like most of us do, so, some of it's riches, treasure. It's all the same thing. How do we get to there? And there's a section in the book, or towards the end of the story, the line about when you looking too straight ahead at trying to get this thing, this goal, this money, this position, this job, and you don't stop to either look up or look around, you're missing out on the real treasure. The real treasure necessary in life isn't always the money or the better job or the fame or whatever that. It's looking at the beauty around you. The beauty around you is the treasure. That is what life is about. It's kind of that thing of taking time to stop and smell the roses. We're taking time to stop and look up in the sky and look up at the stars, or look at how, I would say how blue the sky is, but where I am right now, it is so overcasty. There is no sun, and it's very, very muggy. Oh my gosh, sun's not out. No cool breeze. It's just muggy, no sun. But however, just taking that time to appreciate the moment and living in the moment. And so along the way, what Santiago encounters are these people that he meets that are they're kind of like, they're not roadblocks, but they're kind of like these stepping points. And each point and each person that he meets is is trying to get him to understand and to realize without really telling him about it. And he didn't really get it until the end, and which is when he goes and he finally stops and takes the time, and what does he see? The beauty of the pyramids, which pyramids is one of our 7 wonders of the world. And when you think about how the pyramids were built, they were built by people, slaves, which they don't get into that in the story. If you know anything about the pyramids and stuff like that, I mean, and you actually look at the pyramids and you think, man, that was built with no machinery, no big huge monstrosities carrying these very symmetrical boulders up to make this very beautiful shape. That was done by man, by people. People did that. People carved out the stone. People carried and lug up the stone. They talk about the number of deaths, and anyway, I don't want to get too involved in that because that's a whole nother thing. But when you look at this majestic piece, you think of what went into building it and creating it, and how long ago it was created, and that it's still here, and for how long we don't know. But anyway, his journey ends there, and the thought, just his going through and him realizing, because he started out with having a herd of sheep, and he ended up selling this herd because he thought he can get his riches someplace else. So part of what he had to do was sell his herd to this person, and he kept saying, I'm sorry, my dogs are doing the dog thing. My puppy is messing with my older dog, and it's just, he's a freaking mess. Anyway, my little Rocco is a mess. He's a good dog, but he's got little dog-itis is what I call it. And he's a cutie, but he's a pain too. Anyway, so he ends up selling, and so he ends up doing this and going on his travels, and he ends up running into another roadblock, and where he ends up having to work for this merchant, for penny. It was, I can't think of the actual character's name, but he owned this shop that sold gold trinkets. And he talked about how the owner talked about how it was once prosperous, and he made a lot of money, and then it all kind of fell off, and he didn't make any money. So when Santiago came there to work for him, all of a sudden, and they cut this deal. Okay, hey, if you work here, you for X amount of time, and you make this money, you can save, but also if you make money for me at this, then okay, you can have your freedom back, and you can leave, right? And so he ended up working there, and the owner of the shop talked about how, when he let Santiago work there, all of a sudden he started to prosper. And the whole time that Santiago was there, and it wasn't like it was a few weeks. I mean, I think it was like a year or so that he worked, either almost a year or a little over a year that he worked with this owner. And he kept, and the whole time Santiago said, I'm just going to earn enough money to get my trip back home so I can buy my sheep again. I didn't really realize how good I had it, and how that I had this specific language that spoke to me from the sheep and stuff like that, like how they communicate and how they can talk to you, so you know what's going on, how they move. Anyway, his whole goal was to get back to that. And so, but prior to that, Santiago also ends up meeting this young girl along the way too, and how in that moment in time they fell in love. But he was pursuing this ultimate goal of getting to his treasures so he can, or getting to the treasure so he can buy his sheep back and stuff like that. And he was like, I'll come back to you, and he goes, just wait for me, kind of thing. And it was just the people that he met along the way. And one of the things they say about, that I wrote down about this, was the dream. That Santiago, who was a shepherd, had a recurring dream about finding treasure at the foot of the Egyptian pyramids. And so that was his focus this whole time, was to get there, to get to this treasure, because I had this dream. And it kind of reminds you how like everyday life, how we get in this path and it's like, no, I'm trying to get to there. I'm trying to get to B, and I'm at A, but I'm stuck between A and B, and I'm not going to deviate on the path. Or if you deviate off the path, you're like, oh no, I deviated and I got to get back on it. And that's what the story was about. And you're just listening to you're listening to the story, and even though it was about him getting to the treasure at the foot of the pyramids, you can translate it to everyday life. And that's how I was taking it, just the parallels between this story and everyday life. And so it says the journey, I wrote down how the journey begins, and how and then a couple of his setbacks and things like that. And anyway, it was just how the people you meet along the way, like a lot of times we meet a lot of people in our everyday life, and sometimes you don't realize how much I swear, he is such a mess. Anyway, you get how people come into your life, and you always say people come into your life for a reason. They're either going to come into your life for a season, or they're going to come into your life for many seasons. But people come into your life for a reason at a specific point in a season for you to learn. And a lot of times we don't realize the lesson that we learned until later. And I've encountered that myself. You're like, oh, that's why that happened. That's why this person I met, it was like, oh, I'm sure all of us have had that. And be honest, Santiago did not even realize that until the end, until he got his treasure, until he found his treasure. I'm not going to give it away, because I do believe if you have read it already, then you know. If you haven't, pick it up. It's a short read. Like I said, I checked it out through Libby from my local library electronically, and by audio, and listened to it. I don't know, I said electronically, which is still electronically. However, but it talks about after consulting a gypsy and a wise old man named Melchizedek, I think I'm saying that right, who encourages him to pursue his personal legend, Santiago sells his sheep and travels to Tangier. And this is where I tell you he ends up meeting the merchant that he works for and things like that. And of course, the girl he falls in love with that he leaves because he wants to go on to pursue to find his treasure. They talked a lot too in the book about, it's the crystal merchant. That's what it was. See, this is why I have this books, notes 4C that I take notes on. I'll do a separate, I have it in hand, but I don't want to talk about it yet. I'll do a separate video on that because I actually got it for school because I wanted to take notes on something that would not be distracting, because I was taking them on my iPad, but your iPad for me can be distracting because I want to watch YouTube videos and you get notifications, and I wanted something that I could take notes on that wouldn't be a distraction. But I'll show you that later. Love it. I've been using it now since, I don't know why I keep saying, we are in September. I got it on Labor Day. I feel like it's been longer than, wow. Okay, sorry. See what happens when you're too much focused on something else, you forget to stop and look. It's like it feels like it's longer than just September, even though September's almost over with and we're about to enter into October. And yes, it's fall. Still, even though where I'm at, it's not fall yet. It doesn't feel like fall, but it's fall. So anyway, again, I'm getting sidetracked, back on track. This is why I take notes. Okay. So he ends up working for this crystal merchant, and Fatima, I think it's Fatima, I think that's how you say it. That's the girl he ends up falling in love with that he meets along the way too. And this is also where he meets the Alchemist, which ends up being his guide, his, I guess you can call it spiritual guide that he meets along the way, that ends up helping him get to that point that he's trying to reach. So, and I don't want to give the end away, but I know he eventually gets to where his treasure is. But what you think is the treasure is not actually the treasure, but it is a treasure. It is a treasure. It's just not, you want to call like a monetary, yeah, I'm gonna say monetary type treasure. But it says he eventually reaches the pyramids and starts digging, only to be beaten by thieves to reveal that they too had a dream of treasure under a tree at a ruined church in Spain. And so after that happens, he's going, he's like, man, I came all this way and there's nothing here. And then he turns around, he looks up and he sees the pyramid and he realizes what the real treasure is making this journey to see this piece of art that is a beauty to behold. So I was going to look up to see why this book is on the banned list, and I thought I wrote it down, but I'm gonna look it up because there's a couple of sites where you can go to and they'll tell you the books that are banned and why they were banned. And so I'll put that in the description as to why it was. But this was, you hear my dogs? They're ridiculous. Hey, cut it out. Sorry, I should edit that out, but this is real life. My dogs are being a pain. Anyway, but I'll try to put into the description once I find it, because I want to read it first and decipher it and give my thoughts on it along with it. So, but anyway, The Alchemist, short read, very good read. If you're looking for a book that is really good, that delivers a message, that is thought-provoking, The Alchemist is definitely one of them. If you're doing the bingo chart like I am, and you need to find a book that was translated into English, or maybe you're looking for an author that is not from the US, it checks those two boxes too. But again, it's, like I said, it's a short read. And I'm sure most people probably read it of my generation, probably read it in high school. I did not. So that was the other reason I wanted to read. There's a couple other books that I did read in high school, but I really didn't read. I did back in the day, we used to call them Cliff Notes. I think The Scarlet Letter was one of those that I want to go back and actually read and not do the Cliff Notes on. I thought about Romeo and Juliet, but I love Shakespeare, but I cannot get past a lot of, it's a hard read, like the way that how it's written. It's you really got it. You got to know the old school and be able to decipher. And yeah, I watched Romeo and Juliet back in the day when I was supposed to read it, because the book was anyway, that's a whole nother world. I'm not even gonna go there. But yes, pick up The Alchemist. Check it out from your local library, or if you have a library card, I use Libby. My library, one of my other libraries that I used to go through when I lived in this specific area, they used Hoopla. It seems like the libraries pick which one. They either do Hoopla or they do Libby. My current library that I have my library card through, they use Libby. So I signed the book out and listened to the audio through Libby. I'm trying to do more of that. I'm trying to not buy as many books because one, I ran out. I don't have any more space on my bookshelves. And I told myself I am not getting another bookshelf. So I need to figure out another way. The other way is to check out and borrow books, whether it's physical book or an ebook, or check out an audiobook or an actual CD from my local library. So, but again, pick up The Alchemist. It's a really good, quick read. I think you will get a lot out of it. I know I did. It made me sit back and pause a little bit, regroup in a sense of just for me to reset and say, what am I taking stock of? What am I missing out on? What do I need to just sit in the moment and just ponder? Because I'm sure, especially with school, when I looked up and I'm like, September's almost over it and I haven't picked up a book since July. I'm like, okay, that's not good. That's July, August, and now I'm towards the end of September. And yes, I got one book in this month, and that's okay. I did read a book this month, but that's what happens when just life just keeps going and you don't stop just to take notice. And you can see my dogs in the background. They are a mess. Anyway, and you see the little one, he is a mess. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I'm gonna end it here. Again, this is Yvette, the Techie Scrapper, a Techie Scrapper story and scrap. I do plan to do a scrapbooking one. I do want to do some cards this year for either Thanksgiving and or Christmas. Again, baby steps. So these are my baby steps. So I want to try to do that. I will be doing a planner haul when my planners come in that I ordered from Sterling Inc. for 2026. So look out for that. I don't know. They said it could take up to 4 to 6 weeks to ship because it's a small owned American business. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'll be bringing that to you as well. But anyway, come back, like, comment, subscribe, and also either buy or check out The Alchemist from your local library. You guys, be kind to one another. Please be kind to one another. And by all means, if you can, carve out just a little bit of peace in your life. Techie Scrapper out, everyone. Bye.